Hey everybody, I'm John. I collect cards. Hope you're all doing well. It is Monday, July 15th, and in this video I'm going to track 10 card results of 10 vintage baseball cards that were sold on Love of the Game auctions, five of them on Love of the Game auctions, and 4 from Heritage's big weekend auction that ended last night, Sunday. And then I actually have an eBay auction I'm going to actually show at the end of this video. But the Love of the Game auctions we're going to start with here. I got 5 cards from this one. It was their summer 2024 set builder auction that wrapped up Saturday night. And the first card I'm showing here is this pretty nice SGC 1.5 of Ty Cobb T206 Sweet Cap roll. It's a red background portrait. And again, SGC 1.5, it's got 2 notable creases in the card. But, you know, even with those creases, and this one here that I'm kind of got my cursor on is a bit of a doozy, but the centering on this card is fantastic. And to me, that offsets the 2 creases. The red background is pretty good overall. You know, there's a little bit of paper loss with those creases that impact it, but centering on the back's pretty good too, with reasonable staining, I'd say, for a tobacco card. So I thought this was a nice one to track. It sold for $2,580. That factors in the 20% premium that the buyers have to add to their final bid price. So let's see how this $2,580 stacks up against recent average sales tracked by VCP. If you've watched any of these videos of mine in the past, this is, I think, my 5th one of these now. I enjoy doing them just for a snapshot of kind of sales of some great vintage baseball cards. I have all the pages lined up, so I've got the VCP page corresponding VCP page for this Ty Cobb right here with the correct back. So the VCP kind of combines the Piedmonts and Sweet Caps, the 2 most popular backs, or 2 most common backs, I should say, into one price listing. So SGC 5, the average price here is $2,880. And here's last night's, or this past weekend's. Actually, no, I'm sorry. This is, I don't know where I came with that. This was the most recent result, October 23. On Robert Edward auctions, it sold for that $2,880. So it was the only one last year in this grade that sold. So this first one this year for this grade sold for $300 less. So this one was off by over 10%, which to me is a bit of a surprise given the centering on this card was so nice. So I think the buyer of this one got, relatively speaking, a halfway decent deal on this card. But let's look at, I actually want to look at the grid really quick on this before I move on to the next card here. I just wanted to see kind of where it aligns with other recent prices. So yeah, I'd say it's, you know, it's off by $300, but for an SGC and a PSA's range is, you know, much more. Of course, it just tends to be for so many cards. And sometimes I'm still, you know, curious as to why. It just is. So that SGC 1.5 is still, even at the $2,580 price, still falls pretty comfortably in the middle of a 1 and a 2. So overall, pretty nice card though. So I'd say maybe the buyer got a halfway decent deal on that one. The second card I tracked from for Love of the Game auctions is the second of 3 T206s I tracked on Love of the Game. I just thought I'd track some T206s for this one. Here is the Frank Chance yellow background portrait in a PSA 2.5. It's a Sweet Cap back, and this one went for $234. I thought overall this was a pretty nice example to track. It's got some edge issues in 2 of the corners right there. There's a decent amount of paper loss on those edges in the corners, but the centering is pretty good, and I think the color overall is pretty good. The actual image of Frank Chance is pretty solid as well, especially with the writing on his jersey. The Cubs in Chicago looks really nice on here. A little bit of a little more than just a ding, I'd say, or it's a corner crease right there as well. And this this listing only had the front of the card for whatever reason pictured. It did not have the back, but it went for $234, like I said. Let's see how it has averaged. Probably not too many sales in a 2.5, but I wanted to track it anyway. And yeah, the most recent one went for $324, and the most recent 2 is averaging $257. So I guess this card underperformed a little bit, maybe more than a little bit. That $324 was all the way back in 2021 when the market was really peaking, or just about peaking. So that price is a little understandable in terms of where it's fallen from. But I'd say, given a 2 has been averaging higher than what it went for last night, that's a little bit of a surprise. And I'm sure there's been a few sales of this year. Yeah, there's been 2. One actually did not have a good night in an REA auction, interestingly enough, and one went for a buy it now at $360, so on eBay. But then in October, right on average there in an auction. So I'd say this card, another decent buy for the buyer on this one, in my opinion. The third T206 for Love of the Game I tracked was this, I think, a really cool Fred Clark card, an under-the-radar Hall of Famer. He's holding the bat in this one. I don't know. He's got 2 or maybe 3 variations or cards in T206. There's just so many variations of so many players. I can't keep track of them all because I don't follow T206 super duper closely. There's just more sets from the era, from the pre-war, that interest me more. But I thought I'd track 3 here today. I thought the actual makeup of this card really pulled me in. I love the green background combined with his uniform. I love the stripes on his the shirt part of his uniform. So to me that stands out, and holding the bat, and just overall I thought this was a nice card, even with the toning, or it's pretty dirty and it's a little creasy as well in all the corners. But the centering is decent, and so I thought it was still worth tracking. Went for $156. It's a Piedmont back for this one. And an SGC 1 for $156. How did this fare? So this one overperformed by a bit, and I can see why. It's averaging about $133. I won't click to see when the last one was. I won't do that for every card. But when I see a high and a low and an average, that tells me there's been more than one sale in the last 12 months. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a half dozen of them in the last 12 months, maybe 3 in the last 12 months. Wouldn't shock me for an SGC. So this card did pretty well. It actually overperformed by almost 20%, maybe 15 to 20%. So nice one there for that card. And even if it did overperform, I think the buyer got a really nice example on that card. So Fred Clark. I'd say Fred Clark's most famous card, for me anyway, thinking, is, and I could be way off here, I'm not a Fred Clark, I don't know his cards other than the Cracker Jack. His Cracker Jack card is fantastic. If you're familiar with that one, it's the one where he's crouching, and it's a profile, he's facing right, and he's kind of got the bat holding the bat in a crouch. Just a awesome card. It's just a different kind of pose you don't see every day. He's probably waiting on deck to get up to the plate, and it's just a great card. But this one's nice too. All right, the other two cards from Love of the Game I was tracking was this Roy Campanella. As you can see, I pulled up the VCP page first. Let's look at the actual card that was auctioned off. Here it is here. It's an SGC 1 that went for $336, but let's forget about the price for a second. Let's look at the actual card. Look at that card. It went for, it's a 1, an SGC 1. I mean, it doesn't even need to be zoomed in on. There's no creases on the front of this, as far as I can tell. Why on earth is this a 1? Well, I'll show you why. But gosh, this is a paper loss that I could easily live with. To me, that's not an extreme amount of paper loss, unless there is a crease on this card that I didn't pick up. I mean, my gosh, this is a fantastic card. I mean, you're not seeing his card number. The card number is 84 in this set, so if you can live without seeing number 84 on your card back, then gosh, this is the card for you, and it was for whoever got it for $336. Just a beauty. It's his rookie card. And so let's see what 336, how that falls into an SGC1 recently. Right on average. So 3/3, it went for $2 more than average. So I'm surprised it didn't go for a little more than that, frankly, given how awesome this card looks on the front. But I thought I would track this one. And the next one I'm going to share, the last card from the Love of the Game listings that really got my attention, and there were a lot of them that did, but I'm highlighting the 5 here that I picked, is this 1958 Topps Yogi Berra and a PSA 5. This is a card I do not own yet. This is a card I would definitely like to own someday. It's, of course, in the second half of his career, but look, I just love this portrait. I just think it's a fantastic card. Love the orange background, love the light blue where the position and team name are. This is just a great card, and just, the way they have the lettering right over the cap rim. Beautiful card. And the centering on this is fantastic. Going to check out the back really quick, and here, in my opinion, is why I got the 5 instead of, say, a 6. You can see the corner wear is more evident on the back, like right away at first glance, and it's really those bottom 2 corners a little bit there, but the corner wear definitely comes at you right away on the back. On the front, it's just an awesome card. It's just gorgeous. I'll zoom in a little bit there. Even on the front, you're not really seeing those slight corner dings. A little less of those on the back. It'd probably be a 6. But it sold for $156. And let's see how this fares according to recent sales. And yes, so this one did well. This one has been averaging $130, and it sold for $156. So I'd say was at $26. It's about 20% over recent sales. So this one had a good night, and for good reason. Again, I wouldn't even consider that an overpay. That's just a fantastic card. Fantastic pickup for whoever bought that one. So, and hopefully it'll be in my collection someday. A similar example anyway. Okay, we're going to move on to Heritage Auctions now. We're going to check out 4 cards from their Summer Sports Card Catalog Auction that actually ended on both Saturday and Sunday night. They had half of it end on Saturday, half of it end Sunday. And I'm starting the 4 that I'm showing here with this really cool 1952 Topps Pee Wee Reese. It's a high number 333. I chose this one because I don't think we hear about this card too often. So much of our attention for 52 Topps high numbers, go to Mantle, go to Robinson, Campanella, even the Eddie Matthews rookie card, even Hoyt Wilhelm. I've heard his name recently in a few videos in terms of his high number in this in the high number for 52 Topps, and I just don't hear about Pee Wee Reese too often in terms of just big stars who were in the 52 Topps high number series and make it what they are, make it what it is. This SGC 4, and I think it's a decent 4. It's off center, but it's the image itself I think is pretty nice. It went for $960. And let's see how this compared to recent SGC 4s. Again, here's the corresponding VCP page. And look at this. So the most recent sale of this was in an SGC 4 was $810. And this one went for last night $960. So, $150 over the more recent 4. Let's look at a 3.5 average there, a 4.5 average here. It's leaning more toward that 4.5 number. So in terms of SGC 4s, it had a pretty strong result, seemingly. But let's see when this most recent 4 sold. Okay, back in September and in February last year, they both sold for about that same $810, $815 price. So this card had a nice pickup. But if by chance you caught that PSA row while I was showing the SGC row, to me, that is the biggest surprise of all, or biggest thing that jumps out to me. Look at the price discrepancy between a PSA 4 recently and an SGC 4. That is unreal. That's over $600. Now, PSA usually doesn't outperform SGC averages by that much. So it's an anomaly, I'm sure, but that to me was just striking, especially since there have been, more sales, presumably. There have been one this year. The last two in 2023. Here's one that's, more closer to the SGC average recently. But gosh, here are two more. I mean, look at this. Five of the last 6 PSA sales that VCP has tracked of this card have gone for well over 1,000. So that is just, to me, a huge surprise. And I just still don't, I don't get it. I mean, I'm a SGC guy, but I don't dislike PSA either. But, from a collector standpoint, and that's what I am first and foremost, if you want to get in on a PSA or on a VGEX Pee-wee Reese, I mean, and you're intending to hold on to it from a collector standpoint, it's like, how can you not explore the SGC? Given what the PSAs are going for, if you're not looking to turn it around in a year or less even. So just from a collector standpoint, the way to go seems to be SGC for that card to add it to your collection. I just was very surprised at that price difference between the two graders. So let's move on to the next Heritage auction lot I was going to show here. It is an SGC 1.5 of Ted Williams from 54 Bowman. Went for $840. I'm sure all of you know the story with Ted Williams from 54 Bowman, but just in case you might not know, he was under, as it turned out, under an exclusive contract to Topps. 1954, more than any other year of the Topps-Bowman rivalry, had exclusives for a lot of the big players. And Bowman had to pull its 1954 Ted Williams after it already started printing, so there aren't nearly as many copies. They replaced the Williams card, which is card number 66 in its set. They replaced it with Jimmy Pearsall. So this Ted Williams went for $840. There are 2 Topps 54 cards of Teddy Ball Game, but the Bowman is more valuable than both of those, even though those are both amazing cards in their own right. But due to the obviously smaller quantities, shorter print run, of course, because they had to pull it, it's worth more. So it's been averaging $859 or about $860, and last night it went for $840. So $20 off average. I'd say that's probably just a couple of percentage points, 2-3% maybe. So this one kind of, you would think would fall right in line with recent sales, but gosh, let's take a moment to look at the card. That's a gorgeous 1.5. Why on earth is it a 1.5? Well, we're going to find out here in a second. I'm going to flip it over, and there you have it. Now, I've seen worse marks on a card, a lot worse marks on a card to, seal its fate from a grading perspective. But, Teddy Ball Game was about as superstar as they get. So, 3 stars on the back is, to me, not a complete deal breaker if I was in the market for a 54 Bowman Ted Williams. It adds an element of fun to it in a way, even though, of course, it's totally... Well, it doesn't totally ruin the card, actually. I just think it's a very interesting mark for sure on this one, especially given how amazing the front of the card is. I suppose it's a little tragic in that regard that they're there, but like I've said, I've seen a lot worse marks on baseball cards. So let's move on to the last 2 Heritage auctions I was tracking. Here's this amazing 1963 Fleer Don Drysdale Gem Mint 10. Now, I don't own a 63 Fleer card yet. I definitely would like to pick one up. It's, it's sort of been at some point I will. If you're familiar with the 63 Fleer set, it's a very attainable kind of set to get into and even collect the whole thing, because there's only about, I think it's like 60 or 63 cards. And even the big stars are pretty reasonably priced at a nice mid-grade range. But I thought I'd track this 10 only because centering in this set is such an issue. especially on the back, and with the green back, the green border on the back, the edging becomes an issue as well. But, this one is not perfect centering on the back, but PSA gave this one a 10. So it's a touch to the left, but I guess it was good enough to get that 10. The front is probably, spotless. It's an awesome card. It's a gem. It sold for $2,100. There are only 6 copies of this in a 10. There's PSA's 10, pop count is 6 for this. I looked it up. And here is what it has been averaging. I actually just have the PSA 10 page. The last sale, so it's not even really an average because there just aren't too many sales of it. Although there have been 5 sales in the last 10 years, given there's only 6 of them, which is, kind of a good indicator, I guess you could say. $2,302 the last one went for. This one went for, about $200 less, so about 10% less than what it most recently sold for, so that's kind of a surprise. But, again, maybe an indication of, the market's still off a little bit. And again, these snapshots are just, they're purely anecdotal. I don't mean to really truly read into anything broader market-wise, but, if they're points of data that help in any way in determining that, then I'm, in terms of a pulse of the market, I'm happy to offer these up. So they're just fun to look at, in my opinion. And usually I don't do cards this big in terms of price, but these were 2 kind of headliner auctions, so they were just going to be bigger cards by definition for the most part. So I just thought I would track the ones I found most interesting. But buyer probably got a reasonable deal on this one. Again, off about 10%. From recent, from the last sale of a 10. And here's the last heritage card I was tracking. This is a 1968 Topps Bob Gibson and a really nice PSA 9. I actually own this card in a 5, in an SGC 5. It's about a $35 card. I bought it raw for about $10. I think it was $10 at one of my LCSs, and those are the types of cards I love to get slabbed up. And if I think they're a decent looking card, and so it was. It's a nice. I love having that in my collection. Here's a 9. Here's a very, very nice copy. Went for $780. It's an older, a very old actually PSA slab flip overall, but we're going to see where that PSA 9 mint for $780 ranks average wise. $788, as you can see right there. So right on average, off by $8. So that's decimal points pretty much only in terms of how far off it is from the average. So pretty much hit the mark there on that. In SGC 9 by comparison will probably save you at least $100. But the overall a pretty nice. Quite nice card there of Mr. Gibson from representing his best season of many great seasons. So look at that. Look how old this slab is with the hologram collector's universe. And so an older one there. If it was a newer slab, I imagine this would have actually outdone the average by a decent amount. Just my opinion there. But the last card I'm going to show here, you may have just caught a glimpse of it hovering there. It's going back to pre-war again. I'm going to set this up just a little bit. So I've really gotten into pre-war in the last year plus. But one facet of pre-war cards that I had not really given much attention to because they just don't interest me a whole lot are the strip cards. I think most of them are, I don't know if all of them, but I know a lot of them have the letter W assigned to them in the, I think it's called the American Card Catalog. They usually are like W5 and then 510, 512, 516, something like that, 514 maybe. So the W516s of all those strip cards, that's one set or one issue that actually does catch my attention a little bit, and the reason for that is because they're just better illustrations. A lot of those strip cards, for me, I think the illustrations are, to lack of a better word, I just think they're kind of crude, and so they don't interest me too much. But that's just purely, everybody's got a different take on those, of course, and they're just not my cup of tea. But the 516s, I might go for a cup of tea on one of these someday. So I found this very interesting a 1921 Ty Cobb W516, and I'm going to get a little bit more into the 516 in a minute here. But the illustrations on these are much better than some of the other ones. And so I started digging into these a little bit after I saw this listing on eBay for a Ty Cobb that ended up only, I mean, I say only, because to me, I don't care if it's got a tear on the card. As you can clearly see here, the card sold for less than $500. Playing era Ty Cobb card. And $460 it went for. The seller didn't have the highest rating in terms of seller rating or feedback, but still, it is what it is. It's a nice, just any card from this, I would think, especially raw. When you see them raw, not too often, I would think, and to see it on eBay, so this just randomly came up in my listings. I think I was just searching for pre-war cards, one of my saved searches, and it was one morning I saw it a couple of days ago. So of course I was tracking it, and about 60 others were tracking it. And in the end, it had 35 bids, as you can see here, and I think only 11 or 12 bidders though. So there were definitely people bidding against each other on this one. So it had 12 bidders for it. But I could see myself owning one of these someday. I'm gonna, keep one eye open for W516 at the National coming up here in a couple of weeks. If I'm not gonna look for them, but if they're jump out at a dealer table, I might go through a few and see if I see anything that catches my eye. Let me zoom in a little bit more on this Cobb and dive into the particulars of this set that I'm just only starting to get acquainted of. So I could be way off on some of this, but I don't think I'm too far off. So they issued these in 5 different series, and I think 5 because there's different number combinations that go with the 516. So this one is from 516-2-1. And what makes it that, you can tell it's from that particular series or issue, is because of the lettering. Ty Cobb outfielder here. I believe on only 2 of the 5 issues, and maybe only this one. I think it's 2 though. They're in a typeset kind of lettering. The others all have more of what look like a handwritten kind of lettering on them. So that's one way to tell them apart in terms of which particular issue it's from. But then another, which helps to give it away even more, is you probably figured it out right away if you know Ty Cobb. He did not throw left-handed. He batted left-handed, threw right-handed. And I think he only batted lefty. I should know if he was a switch hitter or not. I don't think he was a switch hitter, but I'm actually going to check that now. But you could see the copyright icon here on the bottom right. It's backwards as well. So for whatever reason, the cards in this set were inverted, and so they're just all backwards, which to me is just kind of fascinating. Yeah, he batted left only, threw right. So, but anyway, that's the giveaways for the particular issue of these 516s. But the images are pretty good. So I know I'm kind of rambling on this one, and we're gonna end on this card. But it went for $460, and let's see kind of where I actually have all sales kind of pulled up right now. I'm gonna go to the grid really quick. And again, here's the right particular card, backwards copyright, typeset name. Here's the designation, 516-2-1. There have only been 39 sales of this card. This is a pretty rare card, which again makes it all the more reason I was following this, because I was actually seriously thinking about putting a bid in for this card. Not when it got up to over $400, but when I first saw it the morning of the day it was going to end, late, it ended at about, I think, 5, 6 o'clock. I think it was either Friday or Saturday this past weekend. When I first saw it, it was only like $100. So I was like, holy moly, I'm going to have to follow this. But as you can see here, SGC Authentics have gone for about $482 recently, of the few sales that there are over all of them. But there were 2 last year, so look at that. $460 and $505. So this one fell right in line with that, actually, at $15 to slab it, and it's right on average of where those have sold, and I can't see how that would get a 1 given the extent of that tear. But anyway, I just thought I'd share this one. Really caught my attention and thought it was worth sharing on here in this video. So if you followed this long, I thank you very much for doing that. I'm going to end on this Ty Cobb, a classic one of his. But gosh, if you can get a Ty Cobb card for $500 or less playing era, to me that's kind of fascinating actually. So anyway, just thought I'd share all those. Like I said, there are 10 cards. Hope you enjoyed the little tour of some auction results from this weekend. And I'll probably pick this up again after the National, because all the auction houses will be there, and they're all going to be touting their big upcoming next auction. So I'll probably track some listings and share some results from those in the weeks to come. So thanks again, everyone, for following along. Have a great night. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.